By the time modern Homo sapiens emerged in Africa around 300,000 years ago, every single one of them had dark, melanin-rich skin. UV radiation doesn't just damage DNA, it also triggers a chemical reaction in the skin that produces vitamin D, that regulates calcium absorption, bone development, immune function, and reproductive health. In equatorial Africa, this was never a problem. Even heavily pigmented skin produced enough vitamin D. Then, around 60,000 years ago, some of them began moving north. At high latitudes, the sun sits low on the horizon. Its rays travel through far more atmosphere before reaching the ground, filtering out most of the UVB radiation needed for vitamin D synthesis. In winter, meaningful vitamin D production stops almost entirely. Dark skin block around 90% of UV radiation. In Africa, the remaining 10% was more than enough for vitamin D production. Move to northern Europe, where UV levels might be only 10% of what they are in Africa, and now dark skin is letting through maybe 1% of the original level. That's not enough. Without adequate UV, vitamin D production slows to almost nothing. Calcium stops absorbing properly. A child growing up in these conditions doesn't look sick at first, but inside silently their skeleton is developing wrong. Women with insufficient vitamin D had deformed pelvises and died in childbirth. Their darker skin genes died with them. Women with slightly lighter skin produced enough vitamin D to develop normally, deliver safely, and raise children who inherited their genes, generation after generation. And yet, if this filter was running every single generation, dark skin should have disappeared from northern Europe within a few hundred generations. In 1903, a group of workers digging a drainage ditch in Somerset, England, pulled a human skeleton out of the ground. It was 10,000 years old, nearly complete, and when scientists finally sequenced its DNA in 2018, they found something that stopped the field of anthropology in its tracks. This man, Britain's oldest known resident, now called Cheddar Man, had dark brown to black skin and blue eyes. The DNA was unambiguous. The first people of Britain didn't look anything like the British people of today. As recently as 10,000 years ago, most Europeans still had dark skin. Why? The answer came from diet. Hunter-gatherers weren't relying solely on sunlight for vitamin D. Fatty fish, animal liver, eggs, and marine mammals are all naturally rich in vitamin D. A hunter-gatherer eating a varied diet of meat and fish could maintain adequate vitamin D levels even without significant sun exposure. Then agriculture arrived. Around 10,000 years ago, farming began spreading out of the Near East into Europe, and the dietary safety net vanished almost overnight. Early European farmers weren't eating fish and game anymore. But why the sudden shift? Agriculture didn't just change what people ate, it changed how they lived. Early farming communities were locked into grueling seasonal cycles of planting, tending, and harvesting. With no dietary backup, vitamin D could only come from one place, the sun. The only women who could get enough UV were the ones with slightly less melanin production. More vitamin D meant bones and pelvises developing correctly. And every surviving daughter inherited the same reduced melanin production from her mother. The skin was getting lighter.